Hey there, Southern Indiana Sawmill YouTube watching people. There goes the dogs again. Go sit down somewhere. I'm going to be making a video here, and it's kind of a difficult one for me from the Southern Indiana Sawmill side of life. And that's because there's an important announcement that I have to make, and this is not clickbait, the title. So I want to explain a little bit about why I have decided to close down the sawmill side of my business. And I want to give you a little bit of a story as to why that has happened and why it's come about. For those of you who watch the channel, you're probably under the presumption, and I would be too if I was you, that the sawmill was my entire life and that that was my sole income. And in fact, there's several different streams of income for me and my family. And so the sawmill, although it did make me decent money, I mean, it wasn't a ton. You saw the video about can you make $1 million in the sawmill business. But for me, I was not anywhere near making $1 million a year. And I made the decision ultimately to sell the sawmill and to sell everything related basically to the sawmill business, with the exception of course, my chainsaws, which you can't live without your chainsaw. But let me tell you the story about why I decided to do that. Alright, so my dogs are running around like crazy. If you can't notice, I couldn't stand very much because they're just always playing with each other all the time. I suppose that's a good thing, but you'll hear them running by probably quite a lot. My tongue is getting frozen as I'm doing this video. Anyhow, here's the reason I decided ultimately to close the business, and I try to be, believe it or not, I try to be a fairly straight to the point kind of guy. The reason was because I was seeking a different profession in my life. And you'll get to know a little bit more about me in this video as a result of this. So 10 years ago, 10 years and some change, we had made the decision, my wife and I, we didn't have any kids at the time, we made the decision to come down from our roots up in Minnesota down to Kentucky. And we lived in Kentucky for about 2.5 years. Well, I was a youth pastor actually down in Louisville, Kentucky. And I was pursuing school at a seminary in Louisville, and wanted to become a pastor. And that's always been one of my, I don't know if it's my goal, I name it a calling is what I call it. And a church that I had been a part of for many years was going to make a decision to bring me on board as one of their full-time vocational pastors. And so I wanted to basically be able to structure my life in such a way to be less of a burden to the church and to be less of a burden to myself. As at the moment I was running a sawmill business, a woodworking business, I was going to school, I was actually working on a remodeling project that takes up to 2 years, besides trying to be a good husband and then raise my 4 children with my wife. And so I just had a tremendous amount of my plate, and for once in my life, I mean really in the last 10 years at least, I wanted to be able to mostly focus on just one thing. And so it seemed a natural decision for me at that point, looking for a change in direction, just to do the one thing, to sell the sawmill. And I'm going to be honest about a couple things in regards to the sawmill business, which I love, and I love the people related to the sawmill business, most of them. Supposed to love everybody, right? But some people are jerks, but most of them are really, really, really kind people and really hardworking people, very respectable. But the sawmill business for me started to take a bit of a turn actually about 1.5 years ago. Almost 2 years ago now, actually, that I think about it. And I remember particularly one job I was working, and it was 0 degrees outside, and I made the mistake of trying to go do a job while it was 0 degrees. Obviously, lubrication on a machine freezes, all these sorts of technical things that most people don't know about the sawmill business. And I went out to do the job, and I couldn't do the job, so I actually lost money driving halfway across the state to try to do this job, but I promised the guy I would do it, so I tried. And I got home, and it was still cold, but I had work to do at home, sawmill-related work. And I didn't have my skid steer at the time, and so I had this huge log, and I was trying to move it with the log arch. If you've seen some of my videos, I admit that there's probably, some less than intelligent things that I've done a time or two. And I was trying to move this log, and I was pulling on my log arch, and later that night I woke up in the middle of the night and I thought I was having a heart attack because there was just this massive stinging pain in my chest. But to make a long story short, what it ended up being was torn ligaments in my rib. I felt like maybe I'd broken my ribs, but x-rays revealed just torn ligaments. And here I am almost 2 years later, and occasionally I still feel a little something in my ribs from that. Nothing major, but occasionally it's still there. And just the general physical activity, you know, believe it or not, I'm nearly at 40 years old now, which to some of you is still just a young sprout, but to some of you is old. And my knees, my back is still strong as an ox, happy to say that, but my knees give every now and then, and things like this, you know, just general age, getting old, you know, it's the downfall of creation, I call it. And so I just couldn't see myself doing the sawmill business as a solo act like I had been doing it, and especially the portable job, the portable sawmill act, all by myself for really much longer. I mean, I would give it maybe another 3 or 4 years at the rate I was going before I would have to intervene with some kind of help or something like that. Also, another thing, the sawmill business was, without a doubt, the largest expense that I had with everything that I did. And so, you know, I have a sawmill business, I have a woodworking shop, there was school, there was just general life and things like that, other projects that I was working on, there's some side stuff. But the sawmill business, for me, started to consume more than what it was worth. You know, and social media can be kind of deceiving that way, and that you see videos and you think that there's lots of success and you think that you're making all this money, and you know, really you're not. I wasn't doing horrible. I mean, it was profitable in the sense that I never went negative a single year that I was doing it. But it wasn't profitable in the sense that I could just sustain my livelihood with it. And that's because I didn't go 100% full bore, this is all that I do kind of stuff. I'd say it was at times a majority. There were seasons where that's all I did, but then there was other seasons, of course, like the winter, and you pull back a lot. But from an expense point of view, you know, I had invested money in chainsaws, in my log arch moving equipment, and just the general maintenance of fixing the machine. There's the cost of the machine itself. There's the cost of the truck that I had to buy to move it. You know, before that I was more or less a Dodge Dakota guy, or, you know, a small truck guy. Of course, once you drive a large truck, you can never go back to a small truck again, and so now I drive full-size trucks. But between the truck and the sawmill, the trailers, the other equipment, the maintenance, everything like that, you have to charge. People ask me all the time, what do I have to charge? You have to charge about $100 an hour in today's modern market to actually produce income off portable sawmilling business. And so I'll leave that there. But when I sold all of that stuff, I essentially, you know, eliminated about $40,000+ of money that I had spent to get into that business. And so that was a huge relief to me, to where I'm not worrying anymore about how am I going to pay the month's bills and things like that. So what else happened as I was looking for this job, as I was seeking this pastoral position, as it were? Well, my wife, I was willing to go whole hog in, as it were, and I was willing to sell everything, the woodworking shop, the sawmill business, everything, and just get rid of it all. My wife, God bless her, in her wisdom, said, do not sell that woodworking shop, because you just don't know what could happen. So don't sell the shop. And when I told my mother-in-law that I was thinking of selling the woodworking shop, she broke down and cried, because she said, you know, you spent all of these years developing these skills, and then, you know, you're just going to give it all away. And I had to agree with that. A lot of the skills that I've gained have been out of necessity. They've been out of trying to make a living. And so it's not like I was a hobbyist that got into it and decided I wanted to make it a living. I did it to survive, to live. And then all the time and all the money spent acquiring my shop, and really the potential business that can come out of that, I listened to that wisdom. So I kept the shop. And I'm happy to say the shop is busier than ever. I'm actually backlogged probably by about 6 months right now in the woodworking shop. But what ended up happening? Well, what ended up happening is that the church decided not to bring me on as a full-time vocational pastor. And I don't blame the church for this. Obviously, there's probably somebody from the church that watches my YouTube videos, but genuinely, I don't blame the church for what happened with that. We are a voting church. We don't have a hierarchical structure, as it were. And again, I try not to make my videos very much about politics or religion. But it just didn't go that way. And I think that there was probably in the church just some indecision. And it wasn't massively voted down or anything like that. It was very narrowly voted down. But there just wasn't enough unity in the body, as we call it, to really bring me on board. And so maybe there's still hope in the future of something like that happening, or maybe it would be at another church in the future. I don't know. I still feel like there's a necessity to pursue that calling. That doesn't mean that I close the wood shop. Maybe it means if that does happen and I end up being a full-time vocational pastor, that I do the shop going back to more of a hobbyist type of thing or something like that. But right now it's generating income for me, and it is a living, and so I have to continue doing that. But I'm busier than ever. It's not like because I sold the sawmill that I'm not busy anymore. I'm still finishing out school. Just so you know, I've spent about 10 years working on my undergrad degree. 129 credit hours, and had about a 3.5-year stint in there where I didn't do any school at all. And generally I've been taking about 2 classes a semester and trying to get this knocked out, and hopefully within a year I'll be pretty much done with my school. But that's where that's at, and so that's why the sawmill is gone. So here's some of my concerns now that I've told you all that. Obviously, having the YouTube channel, which doesn't generate a momentous amount of income, it generates a tiny bit. I don't really do it for the income, and that's not a lie. But I'm worried that I'll lose people, that people will stop following just because of the sawmill business. And I'm worried about this sacrifice kicking me in the rear end long term. I haven't really lost anything on YouTube revenue, but in personal revenue, I've probably lost, somewhere around $35,000 to $40,000 in business as a result of selling the sawmill this year. It really would have been my biggest year I ever had, and so I'm learning yet again. If I'm a pastor, you're assuming I'm a believer, that I'm a Christian, and so I've been a believer now for a little over 15 years, and I'm learning to walk by faith yet again. Because there's money that I would have had that I now don't have. And that's not a gripe, that's not a whine, that's not a complaint, that's not anything. But there is a concern that I'm just going to lose YouTube business, and I love doing the YouTube channel. And so I'm going to continue making videos, but they're going to be more woodworking oriented because I do have my shop. And my woodworking videos traditionally have not done as well as my sawmilling videos. I mean, it's just a fact of life because the competition on YouTube, the market is huge. For woodworking stuff, and there's a lot of really, really great people, and there's some people that honestly know enough to be dangerous that do a lot of woodworking YouTube videos. But I do plan on continuing making videos and making them that way. If you like me, you'll continue to like the videos. I think that's how I'll see that as I think about the future of the channel. But I feel like this video had to be made so that my viewers would know what in the world is going on and why there really hasn't been any sawmilling videos in the last 3 or 4 months, and that is why. But I consider my life from a standpoint of thankfulness. I'm thankful, again, that the Lord saved me 15 years ago. If He hadn't, I wouldn't be alive. And so I'm continually thankful for what the Lord has done. And I'm thankful for a good wife and a good family and these 2 crazy dogs that keep going around, and I'm thankful for beautiful land that I have, that I can do all of these things, and I'm thankful for a great deal of freedom. Not just the freedom we have in America, but freedom in general. I'm thankful that for the most part I can approach life with a disposition that I'm free. If you've ever visited any countries, I've been to some other countries, you see lack of freedom in other countries, and they're really bound for life and what they do, and I don't necessarily feel that way. So I'm thankful for that. Well, maybe you're seeing my video for the first time, and maybe you've seen my videos before but you haven't subscribed. Please go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Hit the thumbs up. That does help the algorithm to get my video more views. And go ahead and hit that there's a little bell icon on the bottom that gets you notifications when new videos come out. We're going to be on this journey together, and I'm looking forward to doing it with you. So please continue, follow along, and I'll continue to share a little bit of life, and hopefully that helps you in some way as well. God bless. Thank you.